Okay, so in the next gen operations talk at the IANS Security Forum, we're going to be focusing on a couple of key topic areas. The first one is cloud application security. So we're going to specifically focus in this one on SaaS deployments and really taking a look at what's happening in the market and how companies can prepare as they go out to the cloud, and they're putting more of their critical assets on the cloud. And there's been some interesting trends in this area. For example, we started with Salesforce. Everybody knows Salesforce. We've seen a lot of movement towards messaging and collaboration in the cloud. But looking at some of these more business critical aspects like doing your ERP in the cloud or CRM, and some of the major vendors are going there. So we're really upping the ante on what we're doing with our cloud SaaS deployments. So helping organizations take a look at that, what they can do to make sure that they're doing it in a secure manner, especially dealing with the fact that very often security claims afterwards, after the business's decision has been made or the data's already out there. So also with a focus on what you can do if you found out that you've got a SaaS deployment that you didn't know about, to addressing some of that shadow IP kind of concern. In DevOps, moving beyond the release cycle, we're going to take a look at how development methodologies have been changing over the years and some of the pressures that's put on security. When we had the more waterfall spiral kind of development with, object-oriented and UML, very often there were times within the process, stops, checkpoints, and security could get involved. We weren't always involved, but there were at least aspects and times when we could get involved. As we've seen this move towards Scrum and Agile, and now this even next phase of DevOps, the life cycles are really speeding up, and that means it's even more critical for security to get involved with the process to make sure that the products that are deployed are reliable and secure and meet the policy requirements for the organization. So this is looking both at the trend of DevOps to understand what's happening there, which is really bringing together development and operations teams very early in the conversation so that we can have these faster release cycles so that Dev understands what it takes to put an application out into operations, and operation understands how that application was developed so that they can support it when it's in production. And this is really extending that concept into something that you can consider DevSecOps, which is bringing security into this conversation so that we can be part of that speeding up the release cycle, but also hoping to inject some security consideration into the process. So it should be pretty exciting. If you haven't had DevOps in your organization yet, if it just sounds like a buzzword to you, I hope you can attend for this, because we're going to really try and take a look at what it means to us in practice right now as development teams and operations teams are moving towards that. And the next one is going to be, we hope, a fun one, which is audit-proofing your security strategy. A lot of times if you talk to security, the security side of the house, audit feels like we're in competition or they're combative. They're the ones that come in and say, did you do this, or you did this wrong. They're always finding failures or material problems with how the security's been rolled out or exposures. And this is really taking a step back, looking from an audit point of view in your security strategy so that we can actually work well with audit, prepare for audit, and some of the strategies that we're seeing organizations use to actually make this not just a better communication process, but also to help security do their job a little bit better. One of the big trends is really taking a look at the holistic approach of doing enterprise-wide risk management, thinking where the organization is going to sit, and that engages the business, looking at your risk appetite, engaging everybody in the process so you know what the organization wants to do from a risk perspective, and then making those decisions so that when you go down to report to your audit requirements, rather than doing these one-off atomic fire drills for each audit mandate. Oh, now I have to do PCI. Oh, now I have to take a look at what's going on with FFIEC or the new, I'm concerned about the new executive order. Being prepared from this risk perspective so that you can map out your controls and decisions to the different mandates and requirements rather than doing things atomically. So really trying to bring this together holistically and looking at integrating tools like GRC and SIM to make this a more successful process, and being able to communicate. Ed Moyle is a former auditor, and he really understands the audit process, and being able to communicate with auditors in a way that speaks their language. That would be the focus of that one. And then finally, we're going to go back to the cloud for our focus topic, which is about asking questions to cloud providers. And it's going to expand out the SaaS conversation to include the PaaS, Platform as a Service, and IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service, and arm people with questions that they should be asking that aren't always on the docket for asking your cloud provider, what to ask them in advance of engaging with them, or again, if you're already out there in the cloud with some of these solutions, what you can do as you're looking at re-upping with them to make sure that you understand what they're really doing for security, and really, again, digging down to some of these questions that may be a little bit surprising. They make the vendor themselves, the provider, cloud provider, a little bit uncomfortable, but from our experience talking to customers and working with organizations going into the cloud, these questions are very valuable and can really help your overall security posture.
Great. Thanks for the overviews on the tracks, Diana. Now I just wanted to ask you, what trends have you seen at the past forums that you think will be important at the remaining 2013 forums?
Yeah, so the trends, we actually have redone these talks specifically around some of those trends. So one trend I did mention already but wanted to highlight again is the criticality of what we're putting into the cloud. And we're really expanding it to be much more about these broader business processes and critical business processes. So we're getting much more dependent on the cloud for very important sensitive data. So taking a look at how that's impacting organizations and bringing that forward, I think, is going to be important to the organizations. Another thing is the concept of single sign-on in SaaS and cloud environments. Most organizations have some level of single sign-on in our own departments because, let's face it, it's really confusing and difficult to remember 10, 20, 30 really strong, good passwords. But we have repeated this problem that we've come to a pretty good solution in most on-premise environments, most of our internal IT environments. Now we're going out to the cloud again with these very mission-critical applications and services. So bringing single sign-on into the cloud is another one. We're getting a lot of questions on it. There are vendors like Ping and Okta out there trying to solve it. So as customers are thinking about what they can do to solve that problem, that's one of the trends we're going to be hitting on. And then the last one, that's a big trend, is towards this speed and rapidity. It's touched on in DevOps. It's touched on, again, in the getting ready for the auditors. But the pressure for speed is getting stronger and stronger. So talking a little bit about automation and what we can do to prepare ourselves from a security perspective to be a little bit more automated, what we can do up front that will prepare us to be better equipped as these life cycles, both in development, going out to the cloud, deployment, and also even audit reporting. So automation is an overarching theme and what we can do a little bit better in our risk management.
Okay, great. And what can the attendees expect to take away from your track at the event?
Well, we hope that they're going to be better positioned for some of these newer things like DevOps, which is for security fairly new. It's been more socialized in the development teams themselves. But be prepared for, as they're hearing about new programs like if they're adopting DevOps programs, or as we're looking at things that may change our landscape fairly significantly, like the new executive order. They're working on the framework for that right now. I think NIST has an early publication that just came out on it. Being prepared for, these are some of the big sea change trends that are occurring in security that IT shops are going to need to be ready for. So, they can expect to get that out of our talk. The other thing that's just a more global thing that you can expect to get out of an IANS forum is just a fantastic wealth of knowledge of all the people that attend. This is not just we're going to tell you what we're seeing. I mean, that's part of it. We're going to share with you our knowledge and start out with that, but also the incredible wealth from all the peers that come to these conferences, because it's really unrivaled and there's like no other security conference out there. So being able to talk to your peers in this information, encouragement, and sharing environment, and to get the benefit of what they're seeing and what they've done that has worked and hasn't worked.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Diana. With that, if anyone has any questions for Ed or Diana based on their tracks, they can email info@iansresearch.com, or if you have any questions regarding the forum itself, please feel free to use the same email address. And thank you very much, Diana.
Thank you.